It says the Hangout's live. And I sneezed first thing. After I hit start broadcast, the first thing I felt after I hit it was a sneeze coming on. So I thought, okay, great. The first thing I'm going to do is sneeze. That's okay. That'll be recorded for posterity. The sneeze, the great sneeze to start the Hangout. So today we're going to talk about Break the Cage. Today's our Break the Cage weekly Hangout, where we talk about the tips, tools, strategies, and tactics for creating the life you want, for breaking the cage or the things that hold us, keep us from achieving what we want to. And there's an infinite number of topics on this thing, and we've talked about a few of them. Rick, I see you're on twice. You're on as an avatar and as a regular person. So just so you know, somehow you have two machines that are in, which is okay. Just to let you know. One of the things that happened just now as I'm speaking to Rick is this is a Hangout trick. If you don't know it, if you're having trouble with your Hangout, if your camera doesn't work or your mic doesn't work or something doesn't work that you can't understand or it quits in the middle, just click F5. That restarts the Hangout and doesn't interrupt your connection. Even I, as the moderator and the recorder, I can do that and it'll come back in and continue to record. Resets the browser. If you've plugged in another mic, that kind of stuff, it usually picks it up. So that's a little Hangout tip, just to know how to run these things and use them effectively, and it only takes like 10 seconds to do that. So blaming is one of a number of ways that we keep ourselves from progress. Now, blaming can be lots of things, and it's far more subtle than we often think, because overt blaming, where we stand up and get angry at someone, is a really obvious thing. So at work, for example, let's pick an example of work, since all of us have had jobs, J-O-B, right, at some point or another. We pretend, and I'm going to use the word pretend because I'm just going to be how it really is. We pretend we can't get our work done because someone won't do something, right? And so then we huff and puff and we complain at the water cooler or complain in emails to friends and colleagues, or we complain perhaps to the supervisor that they need to fix so-and-so because I can't do my work because they're doing this. That's a real obvious act of blaming, so let's look at what's going on here. First of all, there's the honest and literal question of, is it actually true that there is something you cannot do because they're not cooperating or they haven't done it? Is it just maybe that they're slower? Is it just maybe that they lack a resource? Is it actually that they are in your way? And then the subdivision of that is, are they in your way intentionally, or is it just something beyond their control as well? And is a different attitude that you might take, well, I'm going to see what's blocking them in a nice way, in fact, in a helpful way, to find out if there's something I might do about it. So that's a different kind of approach that you can do. So that's a really obvious one, where you actually blame cognitively and in public or in an email or in huffy conversations at the water cooler, some coworker for not getting something done, and that's getting in the way of you doing your project. Subtle ways is you actually don't want to do it, and so you then blame them kind of covertly. In your mind, you excuse yourself for not doing something, when really you know that if you wanted to, if you really wanted to, you could actually work around them, work around their difficulty, whatever it is, without assigning motive to their difficulty. You could work around them and get the project done. And this is the insidious one, because here we actually have control and an opportunity. So if we actually don't, then there's a series of things that you could do. There's probably procedures at work. You can offer to be helpful. You can do all kinds of things to get past the difficulty. And I'm going to take off the table all the legitimate reasons right away. There is a possibility you've got another worker that is intentionally blocking you, intentionally in your way, and intentionally, repeatedly sabotaging your work and your efforts. That is a possibility. That takes another string and another approach to action. So we're not talking about that first, okay? We're talking about the ones where you could do something, okay, and you choose to use the excuse because you don't want to, or you're afraid, or you don't want to finish the project because you might mess it up, or you're angry because they were supposed to do something that you could actually pick up and finish and you don't want to take that responsibility. There's lots of reasons, but they're not actual reasons that you're not getting done. I'm using an example of a project at work because it's easy to see and easy to understand. But now let's generalize it to an accomplishment in your life. Okay? So let's start with one that I'm familiar with. At one point in my life, you know, I was very, very heavy, and I had to lose almost 100 pounds back in my 30s. That would have been 20-something years ago. Let's pretend that I could engage in blaming, and I don't actually remember, maybe I did, but let's pretend that I said, oh, I can't lose this weight because my wife cooks lousy food. She cooks high-fat food. She cooks bad things that it's not my fault. I mean, you know, she makes a meal, she's not working, I'm working a lot, I come home, and and this is what's ready, so that's not my fault. That's a way that I could easily blame someone, and I could keep myself locked in this circle of not accomplishing what I know I need to do for my own health and well-being. The obvious answer is, okay, something else is going on here, because I don't actually want to lose the weight, because if I did, what are a number of things that I could do? I could have a conversation and say, hey, you know what, I'm tired of being fat, I want to do something about it, and were you willing to help me? Yes or no? If the answer is yes, I am, good. One of the things I'd like to do, I don't want to eat so late, I'd like to see if we can get some more fruits and vegetables, drop the butter and the cheese, and do some things. Can you do that? Can you prepare the meals that way? Would you cooperate with me that way? Because I'm going to get rid of this fat because I don't like the way I feel. I don't feel like I'm showing up for you. I'm out of energy. I'm tired. I sleep all the time. Can't do stuff with the kids. Whatever it is that you say that actually enlists some support. If they're unwilling to support, tough, this is how I cook, jump off a cliff, that's possible. Then you say, well, you know what, then I'm going to need to, take care of preparing my own meals. I'll eat with you together and everything else, but I'm going to do some other things because this being fat's really bothering me and I don't like it anymore. So I'm going to change the way I show up in life because I'm really worried about dying early, getting a heart attack, high blood pressure. One of the things you could do easily to set that up is go to the doctor, get a blood pressure report, get a cholesterol count, say, wow, my doctor said, there's all kinds of ways to do that without being confrontational and saying, you douchebag, you're in the way, I'm going to make my own meals, you pig. Or anything that feels like that. Okay, and those are the words, and often we don't say the words, but we create the passive-aggressive, your fault, I'm blaming you, I'm no longer going to take this from you, I'm going to fix it myself. And that is not a good place in yourself to start it from, because then the minute they reject or rebel or there's a confrontation, as it likely would be with that kind of an attitude, then you have another thing to blame, and given the propensity that if it was me, I had already demonstrated to blame things and not lose weight, wow, what a perfect excuse to sabotage it again for another month, 2, 6, year, 5, 10, right? Okay, so that's two really easy examples to understand. Now let's go to some more subtle examples, but before we do, there's a whole bunch more that are actually more insidious, more difficult, and get in the way of a lot more stuff. I see we've got 3 on here now, Rick, Kristen, and Joy. Any of you guys have comments so far on those overt examples that you'd like to throw in, or examples of your own? Okay, that's fine. So let's talk about personal improvement. Let's say it isn't something so overt as physical health, where I am clearly jeopardizing my health. Perhaps if we have kids and I am the breadwinner, I'm jeopardizing the ability of my kids to have what they need, and creating a problem where later maybe I can't work or I get disabled or any of that kind of stuff. Let's suppose it's something more subtle. Let's suppose there's some things at work, a promotion that I want to get, and let's suppose that it's not really clear. It's not set out, so many months or so many years, and you get promoted to a specialist 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but that it's, performance-based, and you're competing against some other people, and you are. And let's say that you've been bypassed once, or feel like you have, that you thought you were going to get a certain promotion, and you didn't. And that made you really upset and frightened. And so there you are. Now that circumstance is really easy to start blaming. One, you already thought you were going to get that particular advantage or promotion and you didn't. That's easy to dive into blaming the boss or the system. You may have spoken to your supervisor about it. and they may have been honest and said, you know, I really felt this person deserved it more, and you could have been mad, or you could have said, help me understand what I need to do different so that next time I can be the likely candidate. What changes can I make in my performance? Or you could be frightened and blame, well, they have a year more school than I do. They have a degree. They have an in with the boss. They're the pet. They're everything they get in their favor, and I get nothing. I just get the crap. Yes, right. And that's the language that goes on in your mind, even though out loud you may not say that, except you may go home and kick the dog, or kick the kids, or kick the wife, emotionally. And those kinds of things because you didn't do it. And being upset because you didn't get something you expected is not unusual. Okay, be upset. Go run around the block, throw a temper tantrum, scream at the wall, put your face in the pillow, scream your head off about how unfair the world is. Good, get it out of your system, and I mean out. Then decide it's time to act and gather the information you need to make the change. So I postulated that you, in a spirit of desire, in a spirit of improvement, talk to your boss and said, what do I need to do? So that next time I'm the likely candidate. I mean, obviously I would like to get a promotion too. I realize that they come at random, and it may not come for 6 months or a year or two, based on whatever the needs are of the company, but I certainly want to put myself in a position of being worthy, or being able, or capable, or preferred for that. So what do I need to do different? Help me. Could you help me make a list of things that they've done better than I, and I'm not arguing to accept it, that's fine, let's just do this so I can improve. That's hard to do, but it's the actual way to get promoted. Okay, those people that do it, or do it, if they haven't spoken to the boss, they do it by watching carefully and gathering the information that's necessary. But the best way, in my experience, both as a C-level executive and as a person climbing the corporate ladder, is to be pretty open, pretty direct, pretty specific about what you're trying to do and why. And engage in a positive frame your desire to improve, to help the company, to make the boss look good, to make the department look good, and that sort of thing. So the first key to all of this, so here's the first piece to write down, and that is, number one, is accept personal responsibility. Accept personal responsibility. Whether you like it or not, and whether you like me saying this or not, you are where you are in life because you chose to be there. You picked where you are right now. So did I. To the extent pieces of my life suck, they suck because I have built them that way, or I have refused to address the issues that got me here. Now, before we go on, I'm going to open up the mic, because I'm sure that a bold statement like, you are where you are because you chose it, has probably triggered some reaction, perhaps some irritation, or perhaps some agreement based on your own personal experience and so forth. So let's pause here for a moment, and let's have some comment on you are where you are because you picked it. And if nobody comments now, I'll realize that I'm actually not yelling loud enough and nobody's awake.
I'll step up, Kellen.
Go for it.
Pardon?
Go for it.
A couple of weeks ago, I mentioned in my comments that I had had a major aha of break the cage, and that happened earlier this month, and I'm finally having the nerve to relate the story briefly. And the recent situation, is that I sit on a board of directors where I wanted to have a certain amount of influence, and the president, and I'm the vice president of the board, and the president of the board had other ideas, and he and I was I think seething is probably the word, but mad at least about it. And he and this other fellow and I have gotten along very well over time, and so it was unusual for me to feel this way. And he came to me and he said, "Look, I want this to work, and I have an important role for you to take on, and I need you to make this happen. And I'm very supportive of you, and I need you to make this happen." And I went and I thought about that, and I thought, you know what? Here's an opportunity for me to do something. I'm being invited to do something that I know is important. And what happened was it triggered a memory from when I was a teenager, 16, 17 years old. And the event at that time was that I had a mentor who happened to be an automobile mechanic, and he was working on one of my parents' cars, and it was taking longer than they expected to get it done, a few days. And my parents put me up to giving this guy an ultimatum about, you got to get this done, and you got to get it done now, and conveying their irritation. And that permanently harmed my relationship with my mentor. And I was really hurt by that. And I was really mad at my parents for a long time. But I recognized that the aha and the break the cage was recognizing that I was at a stage of my life where I was making the choice. It was my choice to convey their anger or their irritation with this guy, instead of saying to them, you know what, I know he's getting it taken care of. It'll be done in time. If you want to get mad, here's the phone number. You call him. In the meantime, I'm going to help him work on this because it matters to all of us, and it matters to me that I maintain the quality of this relationship. And when I undid that anger with myself about my choice, everything changed. And that hidden anger, that hidden frustration that goes back 40 years has driven me in bizarre ways ever since, and it suddenly went away 3 weeks ago. I mean, I can't believe the change that's happening. That's my story.
Thank you, Rick. That's a great story, and it's a great example of two things. One, of blaming. Two, of then understanding the consequences, taking responsibility and understanding the consequences that it has. And I do this with my hands because, you know what? Sudden shifts are not uncommon. They are to be expected. And taking responsibility doesn't have to be this, okay, here we go. I'm going to take responsibility now. Ooh, ooga booga, get ready. Ah, I took it. Oh, wait a minute, not quite. You know, it's not this dance about taking responsibility. It's something you decide to do. It's a commitment, okay? And we talked before about commitment being the key to achievement. Commitment precedes passion. Passion does not drive commitment. And people argue with me about that, and they say, well, if I'm passionate enough, won't I be committed? And the answer is, for a while. You will for a while. So passion can drive commitment for a while. But when things get hard, look at marriage. If passion drove commitment, everybody would stay married. And that just doesn't happen, okay? And it just doesn't happen over and over and over again. Divorce rates are skyrocketing. They have been for the last 20 years. And they won't change until people realize that commitment is the key to achievement. And the reason that it is not complicated. The commitment that you made to dropping that baggage and then realizing that it was not serving you now and didn't serve you then is a choice, and you own it. Okay, I screwed that relationship up permanently because I chose to go get ticked off for my parents. I chose to be a proxy for their anger. Okay, I chose to do that. It was really stupid. I'm not going to do that ever again. And now I realize, look what that hidden anger's done to all these other things. Okay, I own that. I did that. You know what? They didn't actually make me. I did that. I own it. Cool. I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to learn, and I'm going to use that learning to change my behavior. And, wow, maybe it'll let me be a mentor to somebody else in the right time and circumstance that I can then say to somebody else, hey, you know, I did this dumb thing, etc., etc. So this is a powerful learning in two stages. One, taking responsibility, and then two, seeing what it can do for you and for others. I put a long Facebook post up the other day about just a shift in thinking that I was doing. I was making marketing videos, and I put it up in my, I can't remember, one of the Facebook profiles that I have. And it talked about thinking about the video from the point of view of is it going to work, or create some, attraction for me in my marketing, versus what I shifted to, which is, I wonder if this video is actually going to help someone. And then let the other consequences about attracting people to programs and things that I'm doing, take care of themselves. So and I put that up. I got some comments, and some people talked to me about it positively. And I found out this very morning somebody put up a long post in another forum that I belong to, referring to that, and then referring to me by name, saying that it was the best articulation of this particular principle that he has also experienced, and it's blown his business up. So he was talking about the increases that he'd had in his business over the last 90 days, and talked about making those choices of taking personal responsibility, ending blaming, and so forth. So I'm going to move on, and the reason that I am is because these Hangouts are so short. If we talk at length about anything, we run out of time. So any more comments on that, about taking personal responsibility and owning? All right, Joyce got a comment. I am muted. Go ahead.
Okay, I am unmuted. It's funny, you hear so often people talking, you made me this, or she made me this, or when I was a child I was XYZ, therefore that's why I'm, a total jerk today kind of feeling. But then you have other people who have gone through terrible things, and why don't they have those same experiences? Why, like Oprah is a good example, I guess, and you say, well, yeah, but that's Oprah. But she wasn't always this, billionaire person. She had a lot of strikes against her, and a lot of bad things happened to her. So what was the difference with her that she was able to, push through all this stuff and become a success? I mean, what I'm getting at? So I guess it's a question out there. It's like, why do some, they swirl around and it's like a badge of honor for them. Well, poor me, I didn't XYZ, so therefore, that kind of stuff. I mean, every criminal in a courtroom blames everything on, their childhood and their circumstances, and you read that in the paper and you think, well, so what? You still did the crime. Like, the other person doesn't do these things, so, it's like it's a society today of all this kind of, stuff. So I don't know if you want to just briefly address that. I know Kristen probably has a comment too.
Okay. Yes, let me talk about that for a second. Kristen, did you want to say something right now?
No. Go ahead and address that one.
So here's what I was thinking. It's a choice, okay? And as much fun as it isn't, in the middle. So when I'm coaching people, and they say stuff that's blaming spouse, blaming the economy, blaming circumstance, blaming bad luck, blaming friend, kid, whatever, and I call them on it. I say, you know what, you have actually other courses of action you could take. You're blaming everything else so you can excuse your crap. That's not fun to hear at that moment, because when you're in the heat of blaming, you're convinced that you're right. You're convinced that you have a legitimate reason, a legitimate excuse. Okay? And again, remember, we're coming from the point of view of setting that one pile of things aside that we'll address in just a minute. But you put yourself in this death trap, and I put number one today is I'm going to say why blaming is a death trap. And this is a perfect place to address it. Blaming is a death trap because you abdicate your personal responsibility. You give away your right to choose. So it is a death trap because you have abandoned. I'm not even on the thing here. Joyce's thing is you give away your right. You have abandoned your most precious gift of agency. Your right to choose you have given away by blaming. And that is why it is a death trap, because you get used to the idea that you have no personal responsibility, no choices, and no agency, and nothing you can do about something. And so you live your life at the buffeting or at the whims of other people's choices. So it is a death trap for dreams, it is a death trap for energy, it is a death trap for focus, it is a death trap for achievement, it is a death spiral for everything when you choose to abdicate your responsibility and opportunity to choose. Kristen, go ahead.
I'm muted now. Okay, so this can go like the other way too, and you, as my coach, know this, that sometimes we can unnecessarily take on too much blame. I learned early on that if I take responsibility for everything that goes on around me, then in my little child mind, that gave me power. And so I used that and I got addicted to it, and so then I tried to take on everybody's issues, everybody's problems. And so I would blame myself. I would say, oh, no, no, it's not your fault that we didn't get milk over the weekend or whatever, you know, things that are not a child's fault. You know, I can't drive myself to the store. No. That's just like a very simplistic example. But, yeah, we can definitely take this to the other extreme, to the point where it's very harmful in our life. Like what I've experienced and what I'm trying to grow out of right now is trying to take on too much responsibility for other people doing wrong things to me. And I'm not willing to do that anymore. I want to look at my circle of influence, what can I affect, and go from there. I can't take on everybody else's issues because it was weighing me down, and it does things like, you know, cause relationship problems to everything from that to like business problems.
So that is a very powerful and important observation, thank you, because that is the other spectrum, and in a way that resonates with me because I have struggled, as much as this might not be sound likely, I have struggled with the same thing with issues that I've had, and it goes back to some stuff in my childhood as well, and et cetera, et cetera. So I certainly not to the extent that you're describing, but I'm certainly familiar with and very empathetic to that issue. And you absolutely can. And taking responsibility for other people's stuff is it's not helpful to them, and it's not helpful to you. So it gives them an out. So that means you're accepting. They're blaming, you're accepting. So then they don't have a responsibility or an incentive to do anything different because you've accepted responsibility. So they're happy to let you have it, right? And then you, of course, are overburdened, and you can't possibly change anything. So there's something that Joy said in another Hangout a few weeks ago that we saw, and I don't remember if it was a break the cage or not, but I'm going to talk about it here. So imagine in your mind a circle, okay? A circle like this, and there's a line in the middle, you know, right across. So it's a circle with a split. Circle, and let's say the top half is 50%, the bottom half is 50%. The top half is the 50% of things that you control, that you influence. The bottom half is crap everybody else does, and you actually can't control it. The name of the book that it's in is this one. It's called Success Under Stress, written by Dr. Susan Melnick, who's in a mastermind that I'm in. And she's done a lot of research at Harvard. It seems like I have about 15 Harvard clients. I'm not sure why, but they keep coming. Anyway, she wrote this book about success under stress and talked about this principle of the circle and the half of it, and it's not 50-50, but whatever, it's a good visual. The top half's your responsibility and the bottom half's the other. So she said if you want to have peace and success under stress, have complete integrity in your 50%. Take full responsibility and integrity in your 50% and then leave the other 50% alone. And learning where to draw that line is an art. You have to practice, and you have to do it on purpose, and you have to struggle, and you take stuff you're not supposed to, et cetera, et cetera. But just understanding the principle that not only do I not have responsibility for it, but I can't even worry about it. If it's negative stuff, I have to defend myself against it, or I have to get myself out of a situation. I have to run away. I have to quit. I have to get a new job. I have to end a relationship. I have to do whatever it is. If the person in their 50% is doing awful things, that's fine. But I'm not responsible in any way, shape, or form for the bottom half of that circle. And the sooner I learn that this part down here, getting my circle smaller so it fits here and here, right? Sooner I learn that bottom half isn't mine. I can't fix it. Then I'm free. So why we do that and why we make a habit of blaming the top is way beyond the scope of a detailed way. I did say we talk about why. That was number 2. So let me tell you why. The whys that I can, but we can't do a full psychobabble evaluation. We do it because it's easy. We do it because then we don't have to take accountability to grow. If I do it, so for example, here's a perfect example. I use it right out of my life. I've got a bunch of songs I want to finish. I've got an album that I'm working on called Songs of Promise and Power. It's all songs with lyrics that are uplifting, that talk about coaching, success, and growth and all that stuff. I've got about 4 of them written. I want to have 10 to finish the album. I have several of the lyrics that others written. And it's taking me longer than I want to. And I'm blaming all kinds of things. My circumstance, my coaching practice, whatever. And the bottom line is it's a choice about allocation of time. It's a choice about allocation of time. So I'm trying to revamp my priorities, excuse me, because I think finishing that is actually a really important part of the calling that I have to help people maximize their gifts and talents. So that's a real life example of where I am blaming things to not do it, and it covers a fear that I always have of performing in public, a natural fear. Okay, and I had an experience when I was a kid that, you know, helped create that and underscored it and everything else, and I won't tell the story now, but so that is something that I have to take responsibility for and change and make a difference in if I'm going to get that done now and get the song sung that I need to get out into the public. So we do it because it's comfortable. We do it because it excuses us. It gets us off the hook. We do it because we're used to it. We do it because we were trained to. We do it for all kinds of reasons except productive ones, which means it really helps myself and others move ahead, accomplish great things, make the most of our gifts and talents, and add good to the world. That's never the reason we do it, right? Okay, I see a couple of mics unmuted. You guys want to make some comments?
I wanted to just follow up with that. What actually the moment in time when I made the choice that I was going to change that cycle that I had gotten into was when you used the term enable, and you helped me realize that I was enabling people around me to stay in their bad habits, and that's of course the opposite of what I wanted to do ever when I was trying to take on responsibility. So I've had to share that because that's what gave me strength. Thank you.
You're welcome. And that's what I try to do as a coach for people who take the opportunity to join one of the programs and to work with me, because it's not, let's make this clear, it's not because I haven't struggled with these. It is because I have struggled and do struggle with many of the same things, some more, some less than others. Who cares? The energetic inertia that we experience is part of the human condition. The opposition that we feel to growth, like gravity against working out, is a common part of the human condition. And learning the tools, getting the tricks, and getting the encouragement set up through accountability and coaching is a key piece of moving ahead. So thank you very much for that comment, and I appreciate the acknowledgement. Rick, did you have a comment? I see you're unmuted.
You talked about commitment, Kellen, and the other word that comes to me is congruence. I committed to being congruent with myself and the things that that matter to me in my life about service. And when I changed, and when I recognized that and I made myself congruent, things changed.
Thank you. That is an excellent word, and I really appreciate that comment as well. The last piece that I said we would cover, and Kristen, you win the bet. The last piece that I said that we would cover was I said learn to take responsibility. So we've talked about that, and I'm reading over here, so my face is over here, sorry. I said you're an adult and you're probably saying you do take responsibility, and so I want to invite you to take a look. I want you to take this opportunity to make a little inventory of 3 or 4 things, not 50. This is not a self-flagellation invitation. But make a list of 3 or 4 things that you're not doing, that you're not really making progress on, that you want to, okay? And then I want you to list next to them and leave some space, okay? So maybe you do it in columns. Have the left column, and you know, if you divide the column, page in 3 columns, okay? So column 1 is 3 or 4 things, and use the whole page so you have some space. 3 or 4 things that you're not doing, no more than that. In the middle column, right, why you're not. Don't write it in the context of newfound wisdom right now. Write it in the context of the story that's gone on in your mind before today. Why haven't you made progress in those areas? After you write it in the context of yesterday, I want you to look at those reasons, be truthful, and see how many of them relate to either circumstances or others. And then in the third column, write what you now commit to do about it. One of the commitments you could make is, you know what, I'm just going to drop it. I actually don't care if I ever do that. It was something I wanted to do a long time ago. I've kind of dragged it around for fun, but you know, looking at my current priorities, I don't really care. Fine, then scribble it off the list out of your mind and drop it. and don't feel bad about it anymore and don't worry about it. You're allowed, okay? But if you don't want to do that, and it's still something you want to carry forward, then write a new commitment of who's responsible, not just, okay, I'm responsible, I should do something about this. What are you going to do by when? So this is do what by when. You've heard that before. What are you going to do different based on today's thoughts and feelings? Do it in a space where you're introspective and you're honest so that you can carry some weight and actually make a change in terms of that third column. Okay? All right, so we've run out of time. We're over time, which was the bet that Kristen made, is we would run over on this one because of the depth of the subject, and I admit freely and fully in the 30 minutes we've had, we barely have scratched the surface of the reasons we blame, the examples we all have in our lives of doing it, and the kinds of commitments we could make and should make to take responsibility and make the kind of life that we choose to make for ourselves. I'll open it up one last time for comments on the mics. Anyone that's got any? Joy's got something. We'll start with her, and then we'll close out. Go ahead, Joy.
Is it unmuted? Okay. So, you know, some of the most important things in life we try to hurry through. So things like overcoming procrastination, or things like if we feel, you know, we're unworthy of certain things, and then we try to sabotage stuff. You know, those things, I guess, you know, because there's other stuff going on, we don't address it. We do. We blame others. We don't take responsibility. But yet you find that other areas of our life, you know, picking a skin cream or a blouse to wear to the office, you know, you'll spend hours and hours agonizing, or if this is the right thing to wear, to do, what am I going to have for dinner? We spend so much time on that, but yet our basic, you know, health, our mental health, our physical health, our emotional health, the four core, body, being, balance, and business. We tend to, some of us, you know, rush through those things, and yet it seems like it's so out of whack. So, you know, it's good, you know, just not just recognize it, but then really work at it. And we say, well, we have to practice this. Well, we really do. It's like learning any kind of skill, and if the skill is to overcome feeling unworthy, if the skill is to, you know, reverse the enabling, if that's a skill that we have to learn, then, baby, we better start now. I mean, I'm not talking to you, but like just in general, you know, taking baby steps to move forward. And with any skill, it takes practice, time, hard work, setbacks maybe you have to change course, but it starts with that first step.
Great. Thank you for that comment. Kristen or Rick, and I see William's with us in Avatar, and he had come even though he said he couldn't. I'm grateful for that. Anyone have a comment finally before we close it out for the day?
I'm really excited for when William can share, because I know his backstory a little bit. So I just want to leave that as like a enticement to come to the next one, or to have another show on the same topic, because he has an incredible story.
Okay, thank you. He shared a little of that with me one day. We had a chance to visit for a little while, and I'm grateful for that and grateful for your encouragement. We'll see if we have another one on precisely the same thing, but in any case, there's lots of ways to address this topic and other related topics, and so we'll see if it's exactly the same, or if perhaps the story can be told in another context as well, because all of these things tend to be interrelated. At least they were for me, and they are for many clients. So I'm sure that we'll have the opportunity to hear that and be grateful when you can participate in person. Rick, any final comments before we jump off?
Just thanks, Coach, for giving me an opportunity to think about these things and to change my behaviors and recognize where some of these, where I can own it and make the changes easily. And it's just my choice. By recognizing I made a choice and I can make a different one now.
In the Landmark Education Program, they sometimes call that upgrading the conversation. If the original conversation in our mind was that of a different age when we were less mature, or even if we were an adult but inexperienced, they talk about upgrading the conversation with our present level of knowledge and skill and understanding. And so that's a good way to think of it. I don't know if you're familiar with Landmark, but it's just a particular way of addressing the responsibility that we have to create our own lives and to create wholeness from nothing, basically. So thank you, everybody who are watching now and who are watching later on YouTube. So here's the challenge. If you find this, either you here or those watching later, to have stirred some thoughts, do two things. Take some action. Share it with somebody else, or share it on your walls. Because if it was interesting for you and caused you to want to take some action, it will be interesting to someone that you know. And so the first piece of action you can take to acknowledge that it has moved you to do something different is to share it with someone else, besides taking your own action. The other thing I would invite you to do is share your breakthroughs, your stories, and your actions in the comment section. Not of the Hangout, but on the event page, so that others can read them. You can share your stories, you can share the fact that you shared this, or perhaps a second level. Maybe you shared it with somebody and they had a story. So that's how we create this encouragement. So anyway, thank you all for coming today, and I appreciate it. We will see you in the next broadcast, and until then, break the cage.